Hello my guys, I hope y'all are comfortable, I hope you're hydrated, I hope you're relaxed because I am about to take you through the 14 books that I'm most excited about released in the first half of 2025. It is almost the new year, and with a new year comes new books. So these are my anticipated releases. I normally do like the full year, even though there's not much that's been announced for the second half. But since in recent years I have been doing like a part 2 in June about the second half of the year, I thought this time around I would just focus on January to June or January to May, because I don't actually have any releases that I'm excited about for June. There's plenty of time for things to be announced, so I'm sure there will end up being something, but I'm just going off the information that I have right now. Just like with the rest of my anticipated releases videos in the past, in these videos I really like to focus on books that I'm highly likely to purchase or borrow from the library or get from Audible or Kindle Unlimited, as opposed to just books that I'm interested in. So there are some things that I've seen that I'm interested in based on the synopses, and for those ones I've added them to my want to read list on Goodreads, and I will kind of make a note of them, keep an eye on them throughout the year and see if they start cropping up in people's reviews and people are enjoying them. But the books that are present in this video are kind of ones that have precedent, so they're by authors that I already love, they're sequels in series that I'm really enjoying, and that kind of thing. I also always get questions about where I find out about new releases, so I just get my new releases from one place, which is Goodreads. If you go to Goodreads on desktop, I'm not sure about mobile, but on desktop, if you go to the browse tab at the top and go on new releases, Goodreads compiles a list for the next 6 months, so the upcoming 6 months, of books that are being released in that 6 months that are by authors that are already on your shelf. So it's kind of tailored to you, and then you can also click through to see the most popular releases of the month and scroll through that list to see what else is going to be released that month that isn't potentially on your radar. I then, if I find a book, I search for it on Waterstones so that I know when the UK release date is. So if y'all have a different release date down for this book, or if you think that my release date is wrong, I got them all from Waterstones, so I don't know what to tell you. Waterstones is wrong, it's not me. Unless I copied it down wrong, then that is on me, unfortunately. So I have 2 books I'm excited for that are released in January. The first one is released on the 14th of the month, and that one is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I am probably going to wait and get this one from my library because I do have a couple of Grady Hendrix books that are already on my shelves that I haven't read yet, so I'm in no rush to pick this one up, so I'll just join like my library's hold list. This one is pretty much what it says on the tin. Grady Hendrix is a horror author, and this one, I think it's set in the 70s in a home for wayward girls. So the kind of place where you send your daughter when she's misbehaving, when she's a bit of a runaway, when she is pregnant and unwed. All of these girls get sent to this home where the librarian gives one of them a book on the occult. I really like the books that I've read from Grady Hendrix, so he's an author that I always like to keep an eye on, and this one sounds particularly interesting. I like when Grady Hendrix gets a little bit historical with it as well, when he writes books set in like the 70s, 80s and 90s, because I feel like they're such iconic eras for horror movies that when I read a book by Grady Hendrix kind of set in those decades, it brings back all of those vibes that I'm familiar with from the movies of that era. The second book for January is released on the 21st, and that one is Onic Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I do have a pre-order in for this one for the Waterstones edition, and I will be honest, I haven't read Iron Flame yet, but I pre-ordered it obviously because I knew that I wanted a matching edition, and I guess at some point I'll read the last 2 books in the series, or maybe reread Fourth Wing and read through the entire thing. But essentially this is a fantasy romance series that took the world by storm in 2023, and it is following a girl called Violet who is supposed to be joining this military college as a scribe. However, her mother is the leader of the Dragon Riders, so she insists that her daughter joins the Dragon Riders quadrant instead. However, our main character has a chronic illness, and so she doesn't think that she is up to the rigorous physical testing that she is going to be subject to in the Dragon Riders quadrant, because it's the kind of place where like if you fail a test, then the consequence is that you die during the test, and then the end point of this school is that you will eventually be chosen by a dragon to be its rider, and then you will be part of like this country's military. I really liked Fourth Wing. I didn't think it was very good, but at the same time I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. In hindsight it's probably a 4. I just kind of haven't really got around to Iron Flame, and I've heard some like mixed reviews for it, but I still plan on finishing out the series. I also have a handful of books that are released in February. The first one is Cursebound by Sarah El-Arifi, which is released on the 13th. This one is the follow-up to Feybound, which is not my favorite Sarah El-Arifi book, but I did have a good time with it. It's following two sisters who are elves. This is a world where there used to be elves, fae, and humans, but now only elves prevail. The elder sister is a general in the army, and she gets banished because she follows a prophecy that her sister gave her, that if she, it's like something like if she heads to the east, she'll see glory. And she does that and she leaves her battalion to ruin, so she's exiled for it. And her sister, feeling guilt that like obviously it's her fault that this happened, goes out into banishment with her sister, along with her sister's like second in command, and they end up stumbling upon the world of the Fae. One that I am really looking forward to, but I also have to do a lot of work before I can read it because I feel like I'm gonna have to do a lot of rereading, is The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon, which I think is released on the 25th of February. This one is the 5th book in the Bone Season series, which is a series that I love, and I have loved it since I started reading it like the year the sequel was released, so like 2015 or something like that. I just wish that she would hurry up and write the damn thing at this point, because it's going to be 7 books total, and I feel like I spend most of my time just waiting and waiting for a book in this series, and it's such an intricate, interesting world and plot that I have to reread every time so that I have all of the little details going into the next book, because by the time it's released, like I've forgotten everything that's happened. So if y'all are unaware, the Bone Season is one that is very hard to describe because I'm never sure what genre I would say that it is. It is definitely fantastical, so it comfortably fits into the fantasy genre, but it is also a dystopian. It's an alternate history and has a touch of sci-fi slash paranormal to it, depending on what you think about the creatures that are in this world. So it's a bit of everything, but I really enjoy it. It's following a young woman called Paige Mahoney, who is a clairvoyant in Scion, London, which is essentially a futuristic slash alternate history version of London that has been taken over by this governmental body, very like George Orwell's 1984, where like you're being watched at all times, and it is illegal to be a psychic. However, there is a thriving criminal underground of psychics in the city of London, and Paige Mahoney is the dream walker for one of these gangs. One day when I think she's on the way back from visiting her father, she gets caught using her powers and taken away to what she assumes is going to be her execution. However, she ends up in Oxford and she finds out a bunch of stuff that blows her little mind wide open. That is kind of like all I like to say about it. There is so much more going on. Like I said, there's like paranormal slash sci-fi, alien, parasitic type creatures in here, but you just gotta read it and kind of let it reveal itself to you as you explore it. But it's a series that I really love, so I am excited for book 5, but I don't know how soon I'm actually going to be able to get to it. And then my final release for February is for the 27th of the month, and that one is Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, which is the follow-up to one of my favorite books of 2024. So I'm pretty sure that this one's actually a duology, which is great. I mean, that's just something that's come from the back of my mind. I have actually double checked that, but this one is, I guess I would call it like a new adult fantasy romance set in a world that used to be ruled by witches. However, because the witches were kind of taking advantage of their power, they were overthrown by the witch hunters, and our main character Rune had to turn over her grandmother to the witch hunters with her grandmother's permission to kind of save her life. And this was before she knew she was a witch, but since then she has come into witchcraft and she has vowed to save as many witches from execution from the witch hunters as possible. So this story starts where she's hunting for one of her grandmother's friends, who is called, I think it's Seraphine, and the witch hunters are also looking for her. So unfortunately Rune is too late. She's captured by the witch hunters, and so Rune starts to get close to the captain of the witch hunters, I think he's called Gideon, to get as much information as she can about where Seraphine is being held so that she can try and release her. Meanwhile, Gideon is also trying to get close to Rune because there is a notorious figure in this world called the Crimson Moth who is freeing witches from execution, and one of Gideon's witch hunter friends suggests that maybe Rune, who is a high society lady, is the Crimson Moth, and so Gideon starts to get close to her to figure out if that is true. And obviously in this process of kind of fake dating and dancing around each other, a true bond actually starts to grow. So like I said, one of my favorite books of 2024, highly anticipating the sequel, and I might even have a cheeky reread before we get there. For March, we have one that I should shouldn't be buying, but I am a sucker, and that is The Rag Picker King by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Swordcatcher series. I have not read Swordcatcher. I sampled the first 50 pages for an episode of Shelve It or Scrap It, and I really enjoyed them, but I haven't actually read it. I am a sucker for Cassandra Clare though when I actually read Cassandra Clare, so I feel like this is a low risk purchase. Swordcatcher is Cassandra Clare's adult debut. It is a multi-perspective high fantasy, and it is following the Swordcatcher for a prince, so like essentially his bodyguard, and also a young woman who is from a like oppressed race of magic wielders. I think she's a healer. That is all I can really tell you about it, and that's all I gathered from the 50 pages I read as well. But I will be getting the sequel, probably the Fairy Loot edition. I didn't love the Fairy Loot edition of Swordcatcher, but it'll match the one that I've already got, so I'll get that one. For the 20th of the month, we have a non-fiction, and this is one that I will probably also get from my library, especially because it's very short and it's like a full price hardback. That one is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I cannot say tuberculosis. TB. Everything is TB by John Green. So John Green is obviously like, he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska, books that I read and enjoyed back in the day, but he also wrote a non-fiction called The Anthropocene Reviewed that I listened to earlier in 2024 when I was renovating our bedroom, and I had a really good time with it. You can tell that he is a very like intelligent and thoughtful man, and so when I saw that he was releasing a new non-fiction, I decided that I'm going to pick it up. I probably will listen to the audiobook, so I may not even get it from my library. I may just like listen to it on Spotify, or if it's available on Everand. And I can't tell you what it's about aside from probably tuberculosis. I know that John Green has health anxiety, which was really relatable when I was listening to the Anthropocene Reviewed. And also he has a special interest, like I know he was talking a lot about TB in the Anthropocene Reviewed, so I'm expecting it to kind of elaborate on that. I have another two for April. The first one is once again one that I maybe shouldn't be buying, but I think I probably am going to because I'm obsessed with the synopsis. But this one is released on the 3rd of the month, and it is Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. So what I have read from Olivia Blake, I have enjoyed a lot. However, I have a lot of Olivia Blake books that I haven't read. However, Gifted and Talented is marketed, it's being marketed as like a fantasy succession. Sign me up. So all I really know about it is that there are 3 siblings, they have intense rivalry, and their father, who is like the CEO of some sort of magitech company, whatever that means, dies, and they're vying for power after his death. So literally fantasy succession, and that's all I needed to know. For the 15th of April, we have Saga Volume 12, which honestly I read Volume 10 and I didn't love it as much as I loved some of the earlier volumes of Saga, and so I actually haven't read 11 yet. I am going to continue with this series though, because it is my favorite comic series. If you all don't know, because it's been a hot second since Saga was like super popular, this one is a sci-fi kind of retelling of Romeo and Juliet. It's like Romeo and Juliet set in space, and we are following 2 aliens who are from a planet and its moon that are at war. They fall in love and make a baby. Obviously, the people from the planet and the moon aren't happy about this because they want everybody to believe the propaganda that these 2 people will always be at war and that they cannot find peace and harmony. And so the 2 main characters and their child are constantly on the run from hitmen, mercenaries, the authorities, royalty, and pretty much everybody. But it is such a wonderful story and I love it so much. I'm hoping that it just pick up, because like Volume 9 was the halfway point, and I'm hoping that we have a bit of a pickup in the second half, because I really do feel like they wrote themselves into a hole and they're struggling to kind of get out of it in a way that recaptures the essence of the original series. And then the month of the year that currently has the most anticipated releases for me is May, which is quite fitting actually because that is my birthday month. But we have 4 books that I'm excited for in May, 2 of which are published the day after my birthday. The first of which is The Devils by Jo Abercrombie. This one, we're gonna see how it goes. It could be a hit or it could be a miss, and that is essentially why I'm reading it, to find out. So as y'all know, my book club, Catch Up Book Club, has just finished First Law Along, where we read the entirety of Jo Abercrombie's First Law series, like his entire world, and there were some highs and there were some lows, and I don't know if Jo Abercrombie's for me, so I want to try something else from him that's set in a completely different world so that I can find out, and this new release seems perfect. So it kind of centers around religion, origin. It's following a priest who is called Brother Diaz, and he is sent to a city to kind of rid it from the evils, not of humanity, because we're not talking about humans here. I think we're talking about elves. But essentially, I think he's trying to convert a group of like murderers, magic wielders, and monsters. So I'm anticipating that this is going to be full of Joe Abercrombie's trademark dark humor, with also just like a general grimdark tone. On the same day, we also have the publication of Lore Olympus Volume 8 by Rachel Smith. I forgot that Volume 7 has been published, and I need to get my hands on that because I don't have it. Maybe I'll treat myself for Christmas. But this one is the 8th volume in a bind up of a webcomic. It is a retelling of Hades and Persephone, and essentially just modernizes the Greek mythology. It focuses predominantly on Hades and Persephone, but it does feature all of the gods of Olympus. It has like modern humor. They're all more relatable, and it also brings it into modern day in terms of like the gods rule over like business empires and cities as opposed to like an actual underworld, but they still have their respective roles as gods as well. It also doesn't shy away from some of the darker elements of Greek myth, such as like domestic abuse, sexual assault, and child abuse, which I do appreciate because it's overall like quite a wholesome comic, but it delves into those like darker elements a little bit as well. For the 8th, maybe we have Silverborn by Jessica Townsend, and man am I sick of including this in anticipated releases videos. So on Goodreads, this has like 4 or 5 release dates, I'm assuming corresponding to its release date across the world. But on the Waterstones website, it says the 8th of May, and I'm taking it with a pinch of salt because I've been waiting 4 years for this book at this point, I think, at least. But this one is the 4th book in a middle grade series. The first book is the Nevermore. It's been so long that I genuinely don't even remember. The Trials of Morrigan Crow. It's called Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. And it follows a young girl called Morrigan Crow who is a cursed child. So she is destined to die on like, I think it's the eve of her 11th or 12th birthday. And so when she goes to her town's annual bidding day, which is where influential people from the town bid on children to take them as their apprentices in the future, Morrigan assumes that nobody is going to bid on her because she's going to be dying anyway. However, a wonderfully whimsical man called Jupiter North actually ends up sweeping Morrigan away to the magical city of Nevermore, where he enrolls her in the Woonsock Academy. The Wondrous Society, or Woonsock, which is essentially like a magic school. And it is wonderful, it's magical. The thing that I love about this series is that it's kind of one of those where it feels like it could exist in like an alternate dimension, or if you only knew how to go to Nevermore, you could go yourself. And I just love that while it's so wonderful and whimsical, it also has that almost element of realism there where it feels like a tangible place you could go. And then the final book that I'm going to be talking about in this video is released on the 20th of May, and that one is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. So I read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig last year and I really loved it. However, I have yet to read Two Twisted Crowns, but I have until May. It's fine. I have longer if I want, but if I wanted to catch up on Rachel Gillig, I at least have until May before the release of The Night and the Moth. So this one is once again like a gothic romantic fantasy, which is the main thing that I loved about One Dark Window, is that it felt so unique. We're now in an era, I feel, where we're constantly just getting reiterations of the same kind of fantasy story, which is sometimes fine. Like if you know what you love and you love to see it done well and it's being done well, then that is absolutely fine. But what I loved about One Dark Window is that it felt so different and so new and so fresh and so hauntingly beautifully atmospheric that I'm definitely open to reading more from Rachel Gillig. And this one is following a diviner and a knight. So the diviners, there are multiple of them. They all live in a cathedral and they receive prophecies from the omens. And one day a blasphemous knight turns up on their doorstep, and I think he tells them that like evil is coming, he needs help like fixing a problem, and they don't really want to do anything about it until the diviners start going missing one by one, and the main character has to leave with the knight on an adventure to, I'm assuming, save the diviners, but maybe the plot's grander than that. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I love Rachel Gillig's writing anyway, so sign me up. So those are the 14 books that I'm the most excited about for the first half of 2025. There are some that I'm keeping my eye out for, but I don't necessarily think they're going to come in the first half, like The Strength of the Few by James Islington, Red God by Pierce Brown. I'm hoping that we're going to get a release dates for those throughout the coming months to be released in 2025, fingers crossed. I also currently just have a couple down already for the second half of the year, which I will touch upon when I do a part 2 to this video in June, covering my anticipated releases for July through to December. But down in my comments, please let me know what is your most anticipated release for the first half of 2025, so that I can maybe get some inspiration from down there, and so can everybody else. But if you guys would like to let me know that you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, then please leave me a butterfly emoji in the comments, because I don't think there is a moth. If there's a moth, leave that, but I'm pretty sure there's just a butterfly. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you'd like to join me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go when nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.